I believe in your genius and your talents and your gifts. That is when they'll shine as leaders tomorrow. When we are talking about raising Sanatana warriors today, we're saying first we want them to feel so courageous and proud of who they are. Whenever I found I don't know what to do with this situation, how do I approach this? We are so blessed and fortunate in this land of Bharata. All we have to do is just invoke the grace of the Devatas and the Rishis and the Guru Parampara. And it's just waiting to flow. It's all within us. We just have to learn how to quiet our mind. For which you have to be born as a Sanatani to understand it. I can't explain it to you in English language. So first you start learning Sanskrit, then we'll talk. Sometimes I joke with my son also. I said we should get all of them to shave their heads, wear a veshti and put some basma. Then you come to my Gurukulam and I'll talk to you. Otherwise, I'm not willing to deal with you.
Welcome to our channel, and we are very excited to have you in our program today. As usual, we will start with Vidya ji's introduction. Then we will take it from there.
Sure. So, namaste. A very good morning to all here. Today, we have with us on this platform of Satyameva Jayate a very, very special guest who's joining us for the very first time. Please welcome the winner of Miss World 1999, Miss Yukta Mookhey. Yukta ji, it's such an honor to have you amongst us. This platform of Satyameva Jayate, we are so happy to have you here. Yukta ji, who hails from a Sindhi family, grew up in both Dubai and Mumbai. After her bachelor's in zoology from VG Vas College, Mumbai, she did her diploma in computer sciences from Aptech and has also been a student of Hindustani classical music. Yukta ji brought glory to India by winning the Miss World 1999 pageant. She has always been a student of Siddha Yoga Sadhana and is a trained Waldorf educationist specialized in early childhood as well as remedial education for children with learning disabilities. Yukta ji also has a foundation RIE, that is Respectful Infant Education by Madga Gerber, as well as Somatic Intelligence and Craniosacral Therapy or CST. She has had a deep spiritual journey, and as a mother, Yukta ji is deeply connected with the ancient wisdoms. She has a whole list of achievements and accreditations. The following are a few of them. Yukta ji is an environmentalist working towards conservation of water and protection of agricultural land of farmers, as well as an alumni of the Ecological Society of Pune, working along with several institutes and NGOs. She is a lifestyle coach following natural traditions for sustainability in chemical-free living and earth-friendly practices. She is a certified prenatal and postnatal birth psychologist trained by APPPAH, the founding member of Prenatal Alliance, which is an international organization aimed to bring about global awareness about conscious conception and pregnancy, deeply being committed to prepare parents for understanding the prenatal journey of a family. She is a Reiki master and a moon mother, trained professionally to heal and mentor career-oriented women to live in rhythm with their menstrual cycles. She is a Bash, flower and sound healing therapist. I hope I spelled that right, Yukta. She is an Ayurveda diploma holder and has studied Ayurveda concerning the health of women and children. She is trained as a specialist in Garbh Vidya and Sanskar, and she is also a golden period educator by Omnio Future, which is an educational body run by the Sanatan Life Academy and also provides postpartum care as per Ayurveda. She has worked in several charitable causes concerning people afflicted by HIV, AIDS, breast cancer, thalassemia, etc. Last but not the least, Yukta ji is a champion for the cause of transformation of complete education system based on the scientific benefits of Sanskrit chanting of mantras and Vedic Gurukula methods of imparting knowledge of the sacred scriptures, which has now been proved in quantum science by particle wave theory. As a dedicated single mother, her focus for her son is to become Atmanirbhar on all levels of Indic knowledge systems and to be in service of Bhumi Devi, our Mother Earth, through Gau Seva and Gau Mata Puja. Yukta ji has even pledged to donate her organs as she believes that this action of hers will surely benefit someone. What an array of accomplishments, Yukta ji. This is such an honor for us. We are so happy to have you here on this platform. So grateful to you. Thank you so much. The floor is all yours. Ravi, over to you.
We have a true champion with us. Vidya ji will ask the first question.
Okay, done. Thank you once again. So, Yukta ji, so happy to have you here. First and foremost, as a mother, what were the challenges that you faced when you started on this particular path? Because this is a very unique path that you have traveled. So I'm sure you must have faced a lot of challenges. So
Yeah.
please go ahead. Yeah.
Vidya Ma, thank you for the very gracious introduction. And I actually feel very uncomfortable when there's such a long list of things. People say, "What is your bio? What do you do? We need to know." And I say, it's just, we can simplify it and we'll say, "I'm just a daughter of this soil." That's it. We just make it into one line. Like you and I, so many mothers on this journey. I've also had the honor of really questioning myself. What is it that is true for us today? Was it even true for our ancestors? Was it something that our grandmothers did? Is it something that our aunts did? Was it part of our culture and community? And so all these questions were, when you're a new mother, there's so much you want to do and so much you want to explore. And initially, of course, with the internet and with all kinds of information coming at you, it can be overwhelming. And then how do you filter out? And how do you even decide what is that applies to you? What is it that you relate to? So before I actually go into the sharing of how it was for me, I'd like to take a moment and not only thank you and Ravi ji, but also take a moment to acknowledge our gurus, our rishis, and the entire Sanatan Parampara, the Guru Parampara, for having given us so much profound wisdom, for making us capable to understand it, and giving us the viveka to discriminate and be able to sift out the truth. Like they say in the Shastras also, that, removing the rice from the husk and then saying, okay, this is where the gold is. This is where the real true knowledge is. So I think I really want to just also thank all the Devis and Devtas for their graces, for their blessings. And most importantly, I also want to acknowledge for a moment what a beautiful gift it is to be a mother. So just to the soul who chooses to take birth in our womb and, bringing a complete spiritual transformation. Sometimes I keep telling my son, I think you're one of my ancestors who's come to knock me on my head and bring me to an awakening, which otherwise I probably would not have embarked at that speed. So having said that, Vidyama, it was a very difficult journey for me, because firstly, when I realized that I'm going to be a mom, the first questions that came to me is that, am I ready? And yes, if I'm ready, then how to handle it? Because I'd led a very different life before. Now the question was, what are my true values? What do I want to really impart? What are those cultural, traditional elements that I want to ensure that, are in the environment? And while I was in my search, a lot of it was letting go. A lot of it was breaking down of those patterns, and a lot of it was sort of saying, this is not true. This didn't work for me. This is a failure. The system doesn't work. This education thing didn't happen for us. So really also recognizing that, and then going into a complete self-acceptance that now I have to not only orient myself differently, but also get into a complete mode of being responsible for the choices that I'll be making henceforth. So in a way, we are saying, okay, no to this, but before I say yes to what I have to commit to, I am also embracing myself that this is how it's going to be now. Old person has shed her skin, and there is a complete renewal of sorts, like Mother Nature. There's a complete rejuvenation. So it was, in a way, it was very liberating, I must say. Having grown up in my guru's ashram, I knew that there were certain things that I definitely wanted to ensure And how do I now bring it, considering we are living in a very, how can we say, we are living in a consumerist society, yes, but we're also overloaded and overwhelmed with information. And there's so much that we have to really, as I said, filter out and decide what is it that we're choosing. So the first of the few obstacles that I faced amongst, as you asked me, what were the challenges that I observed? One was that I come from a family where my father was the first one to be part of the, independent India. So we've gone through that intergenerational trauma where we got completely disconnected with our roots. He was about 2.5 years old. My father says he remembers being bundled up and thrown into an aeroplane, because had they come down on the road of trains or anything else by bullock cart crossing the border, they would have not made it. They would not have survived. So being 2.5, he doesn't have too much memory, but the trauma is there. So having to uncover that part, that why is there this sensitivity towards a lot of pain, and why is there lack of understanding about why there is this pain. So really going deep, digging very deep into it on us from a spiritual standpoint. So for me, everything starts and ends where it has to be spiritually understood. It has to be spiritually based. It has to be verified by the shastras, or by, by the truth having stated by the saints or the masters, the spiritual masters, and confirmed by our own experience. That's what the Vedas say. That the way that you confirm something is true for you is it should be stated in the scriptures. It should also be taught by the rishis, and it should be confirmed with your own experience of truth. So it was a lot of unpacking and removing the layers of, who we think we are, our own ideas, our own perceptions of life, what we think are the things that make us happy. So for me, the whole journey was dismantling the entire structure. And then who am I? So if I'm not this, then who am I? And as I was saying that, first understanding the root cause of all this trauma is, and, going back to the abandonment wounds, figuring out how they are playing up or acting out in my life. If my father has gone through trauma, or if my mother went through something when she was a baby in my grandmother's womb, then how is that sort of showing up in my DNA, or how is it showing up in my way of thinking, and what can be done about it? And how can I then not pass that on to my son, or how can we as parents not pass it on to the next generation? So there was a lot of letting go of people, habits, things, lifestyles, choices. Everything was, as I said, it was a complete dismantling and just coming down to just basics, foundational basics. And so what arose from within me is that if the scriptures say it's our birthright to be happy, to be in bliss, and also it has been taught by all the spiritual leaders, by the self-realized masters of Bharat Desh, then why is it that we are still struggling to make it from one day to the next? When we are coming from such a rich parampara in our country, we should not be seeking outside. External validation and external things should not be a mode of providing us that, that instant gratification. So there has got to be some deeper way, and, we're doing it wrong. Something is off, very badly off. And how do we change it as a parent? So what really shifted was the fact that 2 or 3 instances where I observed child is not looking happy in this school setup. So that means something is off with this way of education. How can we do it differently? What does my child need? If all children are okay, then what does my child need? What is he asking of me on this journey as a parent? And the other thing that also really stood out for me was health concerns, like every other parent, when child falls sick and the doctor gives you some prescription. And after that, also you're finding that it's not really treating the root cause of the illness. It's just a symptomatic sort of bandaging. And it set me off on a journey. And I said, I think I really need to sit and study a lot of things. I know nothing about nothing. And that started, those questions brought me closer to what does the soul need? What is the soul's journey? And how can we meet the needs of the soul in such a way that we empower a young child who's growing into an adult to not only be a self-reliant, self-regulating person emotionally, but also eventually go towards self-mastery, because that is also what the scriptures have laid out. And for that, because as I said, because having spent so many years in my guru's ashram, I knew that there was a lot of discipline required, which I was not seeing at all around me in the school systems, with other parents, in the social settings, in family, in relatives. And for me, those things were very important. That how do I bring this in a way that is loving, that is compassionate, tender, gentle, but at the same time very firm in the boundaries. Because this is exactly what's going to lead him or lead anybody, any human being, to their self-realization, to their moksha and to their bhukti and mukti, as they say. So then I started saying, okay, what kind of education should we provide then? Someone said it should be a natural education. And I said, what do you mean by natural education? And then, so one question led to the other, inquiry with other parents, inquiry with other mothers. And I stumbled upon something called world of education. Now, at the face of it, it seemed like there is a much more deeper aspect to it, which is soul spiritual based education, understanding how the journey of the child is unfolding and karmically what has the soul brought with him or her, and what are they seeking on this earthly existence. What are the experiences that will allow them to unfold, blossom better, and how can we nurture them in that fashion? So these questions led me to to take up the teacher training for the world of education, which then, while I was going through that training, it not only did it answer those questions which I was holding within myself, because world of education purely is taken from, its roots are from the Vedas. It's all gone to the West, and then, it comes back to us like everything else, like yoga and Ayurveda as well. So yeah, once I completed the teacher training, it really started lighting all those little bulbs in my mind and said, this is exactly how the Shastras have said, this is how we do it in yoga, this is how we do it in our mantra chanting, this is what we do when we have satsang in our ashrams, so it all sort of came together because of my own spiritual background. And that brought me back much more beautifully and strongly to be anchored in Sanatana Dharma. And, how can we bring those practices and how can we bring our cultural values and traditions and festivities and language and everything else into the life of the child, where he's not feeling lost in a jungle. That is what I felt, that if we are putting children today in the world where they are faced with the harsh realities of internet or with social and peer group influences or pressures, how are we empowering them to combat it? They'll not be able to fight those without the ability. And then always having that, it's not a fear as such, but yeah, always having that thought that my child should not grow up as an adult and say, Amma, you didn't teach me this. So, what is that he may need as an adult? Because today, when you start your journey as a parent, you say, okay, 20 years from now, where is the world going to be? How is the future going to be? We don't know. But how can they have the tools? How can our kids have those tools which they need to feel empowered and say, I can face life. I can face the challenges of life. Any crisis comes, I know how to deal with it. And as I said, that those things can only come from self-discipline, self-mastery, self-realization. So for me, those spiritual values became much more a priority than just pure academics. And through the pedagogies which I learned in the teacher training, I realized that academics is just a very small, maybe even a leaf on the entire tree. First we have to grow very strong roots. Then we have to allow the tree to, for the trunk of the tree to take its own time and grow as tall and as strong as it needs to. And we see branches, then we see fruits and flowers coming in. We hope that with those values and gifts that we've imparted to them, that they are able to then share it with the society, with the world. They're able to serve their motherland better. So yeah, that's basically been how the journey unfolded on a larger scale. But of course, we'll go into the details as we progress. I'm waiting actually to hear more questions from the audience as well.
Over to you.
All right. I'm sure you may have come across a lot of obstacles, and I'm sure there will be some high points and low points of transformation, which can be, inspiring to others. We definitely would like to hear that too.
Raviji, actually, just the fact that when you say that you're not putting your child in a regular school is enough for all relatives to start coming and almost attacking you and your parents and everybody around you and say, what are you doing with the child? And what is all this decision making you? Which path are you going? What you do with yourself is different, but this is what they need. And so everybody has their opinions and ideas, and that's fine. So that for me was the biggest challenge as to who was, as I was sharing with you earlier, having been a public figure, having led a life as a celebrity for a while, for me, it was very important to recognize and realize that I have done enough of people pleasing. I have done enough of thinking and behaving as per others' expectations of me. And that's the last thing that I want to give as a mother to my child, is having to fit into other people's box. So, the biggest obstacle was for me was to break away from those shackles of feeling judged, feeling criticized, maybe even going to the point of relatives denigrating you, or a lot of people criticizing and saying, but what about this? But what about that? And in a nutshell, I realized not only just me, but a lot of parents, and more so today, which was probably not the case 50 or 100 years ago, is that parents have come under a lot of fear. That confidence is lacking as to how I am supposed to bring up my child. Earlier, we were part of a community. Earlier, our society was always, very well held. It was a close-knit gathering of family, uncles, aunts, cousins, the whole samaj is with you. But now what has happened is, because we've become nuclear families, because of the fact that the education system has conditioned the minds, programmed the minds of people that all you need to do is, get this education, get a job, go after this. So it's almost like we're running behind things and we're becoming slaves of a system that is then dictating our choices and our thought processes. And to me, that was already a complete no. I said, this has already been abandoned. So now, whatever I'm doing, I'm not only taking full ownership and responsibility of it, but I'm also allowing the child to guide me. I'm also observing the child and seeing how is it that he's fitting in different circumstances, what are his needs, which every parent looks at. I'm not saying that, parents are not aware of those things. We always watching out as mothers, what does the child need? Every moment we are on standby. But really looking at it from a lens which allows you to go deeper and say, if this is what's happening on the surface, then emotionally, what is it asking of me as a parent? So it's asking me to sort of let go of my fear. Fear, if I don't do this, this will not happen for my child. Fear, if I don't give it like this, then child will throw a tantrum. If I don't please the child in this manner, they'll not have those things which other children have. So for me, having been a rebel since I was a teenager, I said, okay, this is the norm, then we'll do it the other way. We'll just do it completely the opposite way. Let him cry, let him have a tantrum, we'll see what happens. But with the intention that how is it going to make him stronger? How is he going to be a much more able person to self-soothe, to self-regulate, to become more aware of his emotions? And when he's able to do that, then he'll be able to support others in society when he grows up as an adult. So for me, it became more of, okay, we're discarding all these things, but in practicality now, how do I bring it down into my lifestyle? Like, what are those things that I need to So as I said, for me, it was completely letting go of being in front of the media, in front of camera, so that, all those fancy labels and tags are not bothering him. And I said, the child only needs to know me as a mother. He doesn't need to know anything about anything. And, on a very, very basic level, if I come down to it, it meant I had to let go of everything, like makeup choices, giving up completely all chemicals, eating differently, sleeping on a different time, managing certain herbs and remedies as per Ayurveda, because that's what we gravitated towards. Our journey took us on a road where we said, okay, we're not going to do it the easy way. We're going to build our immunity with, living in a certain rhythm with cycles of nature. We're going to learn how to meditate at a very young age. Going to learn how to sit in silence. Those things are very important. So providing that atmosphere meant also being in a sangam. And for me, fortunately, because I already come from that spiritual path, I follow the Siddha Yoga lineage. There are centers and there are family satsangs they would have for young children. And, at very young age, we don't expect children to sit in one place for more than hardly or even a minute or so. But because the support is there from the community, that everybody's children are together and they're all chanting God's name, somebody's playing some musical instrument, some child wants to play, run around. It's absolutely fine and it's absolutely welcome. And that's what brings the, the no, it makes it very normal. That's what brings a regularized thing to it. That this is what we do. We chant God's name, we sit in silence, we meditate, and then we go and have a good snack after that. So it's celebration. And for me, I found that, when children are just let to be in their own natural way, even with the teacher training that I went through, the more that we let them be in their natural state, the better that they flower and the better that they are, with just in their own skin. They just feel more accepted. They're not told what to do. They're not dictated all the time. Yes, there is discipline and there is rhythm. This time you have to eat, this time you have to sleep. You don't have a choice. If you're not going to wear a jacket, if it's cold and raining, you have to wear a jacket. But we have to limit those choices which we are giving our children. So, as coming back to what I found, and I was sharing with you earlier, I found first I said there was a lot of fear that parents had, or have rather, when they become new parents, because we are so lost, we don't know what to do. And the second thing I found is that because they're not well informed, they're not well educated about, or they're not well supported by the society and the community like it used to be, parents are giving way too much freedom and way too many choices to children, which they are not yet capable to make and figure out for themselves. So saying that let the child decide and let the child have what is really letting a bull out of a china shop. It's a wild chase. We're all going to be like, goose running over the field. So it's not helping the parent, it's not helping the child, and it's not based on any principles. It needs to be based on some form of thought process. There has to be some principles behind it. And as I said, for me, those principles formally came to me through the teacher training, but I already inherently knew it from the Guru Shishya Parampara, having been in the Guru's ashram and having gone through the discipline of seva and silence and meditation and contemplation and manan. So many of those factors for me, as I said, played such an important role that it was a natural way of bringing those things to the child and saying, okay, but if somebody else is doing that, doesn't mean we have to do it. So this is what we are doing. And a lot of parents would ask me, so you don't feel you're depriving your child of these things? And I said, if they don't know it exists in the world, then the question of deprivation doesn't arise. It's almost like in a Brahmin family or in a Jain family, for example, if they don't eat onions and garlic, that's what they do. So if we are going to be vegetarian, and if this is how the kind of food that we're going to eat, and we are not going to go into those, for me as an adult, it was more about boycotting everything that was colonized, because we had to stick to our Sanatana practices. But from the child's perspective, I could understand that it had to be done much more gently and much more lovingly, where it was almost brought as though this is the normal way how it's done. This is healthy for you. Over a period of time, letting them become so habituated to those things that they also learn to value and appreciate it. So the other thing which I was wanting to share along with the parents giving too much freedom and choices is that we need to know that children thrive better on with boundaries. The stronger the boundaries, the better the child will be. It's almost like saying, I've put a seed, it's now become a sapling, but before it grows into a tree, I will allow all wild animals to run near this new sapling. It doesn't happen like that. A farmer always tends and takes care. Weeds are removed, parasites are not there, bugs are not coming, wild animals are not coming. We protect that. Today, Vidya and Raviji, it's become so important that parents know what are they protecting their children against. With the whole assault on their senses on all levels, whether it's just not just the physical senses, but even the mental faculties are constantly being under attack, with friends, with social media today, with young children. They're seeing adults constantly on their gadgets. They're not seeing adults do those traditional activities at home. Mothers are not grinding masalas. Food is being ordered on the tap of a screen. So, through my whole process and journey, I realized one thing, that if we don't allow them to go through the grind and we don't let them have the discipline of hard work or go through disappointments, we're really robbing them of their willpower. Because if they don't go through these difficulties, they're not going to be able to fight back and have that resilience which we want them to have. Anyhow, in a human being, the resilience is there. But by me giving into those things as a shortcut, or for the sake of instant gratification, I'm literally taking away that opportunity from the child to develop further his fortitude and his own strength of will, and understand that this is the way it's not to be done and this is the way it's to be done. So we can't instruct them, we can't teach very young children, even when they're teenagers, even when they're growing into young adults. We can't always instruct a child, because children always learn through imitation. So the journey of self-transformation for a parent is to be that person who you want your child to be. You are the role model. They are looking up to the mother. Even a small toddler will take the rolling pin and the chakla and start doing as the mother is making chapatis or chopping vegetables in the kitchen. So from that age, we know the child is actually only learning through imitation, not only just physically and emotionally, but then also later on spiritually. Looking how is my parent handling a crisis? How does my parent react, or rather choose to respond in a situation where they're feeling stressed? What are those spiritual practices that they lean into? How do they anchor into their breath when all their emotions are coming up? For a newborn baby at 6 inches eye distance, the first thing they can see is a mother's expression. That's the first education for a child, is coming straight from the mother. I mean, before that, already it was happening in the mother's womb also, where the mother's voice and feelings and everything the mother's eating and going through is completely impacting the genetic structure of the child. But also, I feel that in this journey and as a process of growing and evolving ourselves as adults, we are then becoming, not are we holding the space for the child to say, okay, this is how it's done in a moment of crisis or in a moment of joy or in the moment of having to make choices. But also we find a friend in them. Also we find someone who can say, Mama, do you think we can do it like this? And then you wonder, yeah, it's a different way of looking at the whole situation. And here comes the new generation and shows us a different perception or shows us a different reality. So all those things not only have enriched my journey in life, but have also allowed me to see things with a very different filter. And as I said earlier also, for us, it was very important, as we've been growing, for us, it was very important to stick to those food habits, to those practices of being, environmentally sustainable, doing everything which is friendly for Mother Earth, respecting nature, respecting the environment, and caring for animals, being sensitive and gentle with ourselves, which doesn't mean that we don't know how to face the world. On the contrary, it allows us to, it gives us that space and it gives us that silence within ourselves to then come back with a much more stronger willpower and say, okay, now I gather all this energy which I have available to me and I focus it, I target it, where my intention is. So, what is my sankalpa? For life, for society, for work, for myself. That's what the scriptures also teach us. What is my swadharma? What is it for me that I'm doing to become a completely capable person? What is it that I will now do for my guru dharma, for my matrabhumi dharma? There is so many aspects to it that just keep unraveling over and over. So as I was sharing, Raviji, finally the all the answers that I found have come only and only through my guru's teachings and the scriptures. Whenever I found I don't know what to do with this situation, how do I approach this? We are so blessed and fortunate in this land of Bharata. All we have to do is just invoke the grace of the Devatas and the Rishis and the Guru Parampara. And it's just waiting to flow. It's all within us. We just have to learn how to quiet our mind. And those have been some major growth points in our journey as a mother and child. With regards to, as I was saying, with regards to food choices, with regards to lifestyle choices, with regards to educational choices.
Saying all good things happen from good sankalpa.
Good sankalpa, absolutely.
Vidya ji.
Yeah. Okay. So, Yukta ji, as Hindu parents, like we were discussing these things, they are facing a lot of challenges where their wards are being bombarded through gadgets which are very, very misleading, especially with respect to anti-Hindu narratives. How should these people tackle it and what should be their way forward?
Vidya, a very potent question and really need of the hour. Not only just I'm saying for Hindu parents, but for all parents in general. I'll just come back to also what I was sharing earlier, that parents today really need to know what their battle is. What are they facing? Who is the enemy? The enemy is not somebody who's going to come and kidnap your child. The enemy is definitely the devices that they're holding in their hands. And the enemy here is also understanding who is behind the programs that are being run on those devices. That is the core here. Worked with pedagogy, what I understood was, and that is true on the level of science, and that is also true on the level of spirituality. When we talk about Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and we talk about our koshas in the body, a child is really also, as we said, the child is learning through imitation. The child is learning through their physical environment, what I'm touching, how I'm feeling, what I'm tasting. So their senses are getting informed about what's going on around them. Most importantly, what's happening is their subconscious is getting programmed. And their subconscious is getting programmed by somebody else who is not their parent, who does not have their welfare in mind. So for a lot of parents who think, especially during COVID, during the lockdown, the amount of issues that children started having because of the time they were spending in front of screens has been much more brain damaging than the so-called classes or the information or whatever course they were doing, which they feel that they would have accomplished and didn't lose out on that 1 year. In fact, it should have been a gap year. In fact, it should have been just a year where everybody takes off and goes into their own spiritual sadhana, especially in a land of Bharata. But I find that parents are not able to have a sense of control on how much screen time is being given to the children, on what content they're watching, whether it is age appropriate, why certain video games and certain things are being allowed, which is not even a good developmentally. So for me personally, it came down to simplifying everything. And I just keep going back to, because I had grown up in a culture where I felt life, even in our earlier days when we were younger, it was very easy for us to just be children. We didn't have such complications about having to worry about 20 different things which they are having to deal with today. And so I'd made this conscious decision of not giving the gadget and the devices to my son from a very young age. And I said, come what may, I myself will spend least amount of time, as much as required, to make a phone call or check some messages or emails. And that also preferably when the child is not around. So that firstly, my full attention is on the child when he or she needs me as a parent. That I feel is the primary attitude. I've also received that from my parents. And the other thing which I realized is that how they're processing those images, how they're interpreting all that information is something we'll not know right now. So this is where the very fierce boundary as a parent must come in, needs to come in, and there is no choice around it. I'm willing to argue with any parent left, right, and center to comb out and pull out all the weeds and thorns and show you the true picture. Firstly, social media or any program that they have access to on through the internet or any information is not true. But because it's coming through images, the subconscious mind is picking it up, because subconscious mind is much more powerful. It's taking straight from the images and it is believing it to be true. So now how do I fight that? I'll just come to that answer later. Second, the other issue is that this whole energy of the digital technology is, for lack of another better term, I'm repeating what I said, is assaulting their senses. So neural science today will tell us that the human brain is not developed well till the age of 25, which is what even our gurus knew about, which is why intellectual learning or academic contemplation was taught at a much later age. Even in the Gurukulas, it was always through farming and chanting mantras and doing seva for the guru. The young Shishya was always in the environment doing all those things. It's much later that the academics would come in. Why? Because the prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking part of your brain, which is the analytical part of your brain, which decides what action I'm doing is leading to what consequence, is fully developed only by the age of 25. So if I'm trying to teach concepts to my child at the age of 3, 4, 5, not only is it water on a duck's back, but I'm actually doing much more brain damage than I think that I'm achieving in terms of academic investment. Usko ye aata hai, usko wo aata hai, whatever it may be. And definitely all parents want to feel very proud of their child's accomplishments. But we are doing it at the cost of taking away their childhood, their innocence, and their playtime. Because young children only can develop leadership skills and qualities through play. When they're in groups, when they're in nature, when they're learning to balance their bodies, when their internal ear fluids are still not at par where they can listen to a teacher's instructions. And in the Guru Parampara Vidya always it was taught through oral tradition. So listening and sitting in one place with focused attention has been such an integral part of the Guru Parampara. To be able to do Shravana and then go into Manana is the core foundation of the Guru Parampara. So here we are asking them to take in information from one screen. One teacher is telling something, they have to read books and they have to write those things in exams. I mean, it's a completely opposite damaging approach to education, which not only is it colonized, first of all, it's not even based on our Shastras. That itself, there itself lies my bone of contention. But other than that, the way that it is being brought, even to adults, let's say somebody is going to a medical college or an engineering college or wants to become an accountant or whatever, the way that that education is also coming is making them feel judged if they don't perform to a certain ability. It is not taking into account what other skill sets they may have. It's not allowing them to learn in the way that their mind is functioning. So it's a one size fits all. It's like a factory model. Everybody should study that. Everybody should produce that result and go and apply for those jobs. Here we are not nurturing every individual like a tree, like a flower. Let them blossom in their own beautiful way. Let them show who they are. They've come with their genius. So for me, the greatest learning and the greatest and the most beautiful part of this whole journey of being a parent and having done the teacher training and sticking to the Sanatana values and dharma is accepting this soul's journey, respecting that this human has come with their own genius, whatever it is that they've come with. I have to honor it. As a parent, when I show that soul and I give them that space that I see who you are, I believe in your genius and your talents and your gifts, that is when they'll shine as leaders tomorrow. When we are talking about raising Sanatana warriors today, we're saying first we want them to feel so courageous and proud of who they are. That cannot happen if I'm constantly as a parent telling, you didn't get those marks and that fellow's doing this thing better and look, and he's into extracurricular activities and you didn't perform well in that football. This is not the way that I'm going to ask. It's almost telling like a rose that you should become a jasmine flower. It's not going to be. We're going against the law of nature. So here's my appeal to parents who are listening here, to grandparents, and also to educators, most importantly, to please just go back to basics. Let's understand even scientifically. Let's keep aside once for a moment spirituality, even though spirituality should be the core of educational pedagogy. That's how Sanatana has always propagated its values and promoted our culture, and that's how it's lived through the centuries and the yugas, is that there is no science and there is no education and there is no knowledge without spiritual basics in place. But for a moment, for the sake of saying that, okay, I just want to, for the left brain people, let's say, I just want to logically say it, okay, we're doing Taraka. Now, if a child is learning through imitation from the age of birth to 7, they're physically not ready for it. That's how they checked in the Guru Parampara also. Has the child dropped their first tooth? Milk tooth has dropped. Can he stand on one leg? That means he can balance himself. That means that inner ear fluid has come to a balance where he can then take in the teacher's voice or instructions or whatever she's asking. And 3, is he able to sit in one place? So is he able to understand what's happening? Is he having a relationship with the external world? So from birth to 7, we see that the child is only learning from the physical, in a very physical manner. So we give them those physical activities which they can imitate, which help to then develop their brain centers and help to balance the two sides of the body. And there are so many different aspects to it. And from 7 to 14, we see that the child is now what we are calling puberty or teenage or whatever that phase is, from 7 to 14. Is the time when the child really needs to learn through inspiration, through art, through music, through being with, with good teachers. Yes, academics must start slowly at that age, but it should not come in a way that we are bringing in too many concepts and bringing in pressure of examinations and all those things. And then we see from the age of 14 onwards, as they are growing into young adults, from teenage into matured people, that they're able to then develop those faculties of discrimination, that they're able to say, okay, if I do this, then this happens. So then we can bring in physics and we can bring in chemistry and we can bring in biology, but we can't segregate subjects. It all has to be one very integrated, holistic approach to education. And so again, as I was wanting to complete the thought, how is the human brain functioning? If the human brain is functioning, as we said, that the prefrontal cortex itself is not ready till the age of 25, then why are we expecting them to behave and perform like robots and computer gadgets at a very young age? We want them to perform and we want them to, deliver results in such a way. Abhi ye sikha hai, now the child should be able to do this. They have their own speed, they have their own rhythm, they have their own way of showing who they are. And so college education, of course, in the ancient times, we had all our great universities like Nalanda and Takshashila and whatnot. And there's a whole array of research done on Indic knowledge systems today. We have everything available on our fingertips, but we also need such capable and efficient acharyas. We need people who are willing to be able to impart that in a way where they themselves have understood it very deeply. It's not just bookish knowledge from some academic course curriculum that needs to be finished off in 2 years. So we're really looking at an educational revolution today. It's the need of the hour. Parents need to stand up very firmly, say this is how we want it for our children. And if the systems are not changing, then we should be willing to boycott the system. Then we should be able to stand up and say, we are the system, we have the power. No school or institutions are running without the high fees paid by parents. We should not be running behind Harvard and Ivy League in the West. We are our own Nalanda and Takshashila. We are the guru. The child's first guru is the mother and the father. So it's up to parents how to turn the whole wheel back in such a way that we stop looking outward. Our children stop looking for validation outside. We understand that the whole game is in our hand. And that is where it'll change in such a manner that not only we start, going back into our roots and seeing what is it that my scriptures are teaching, what is it that the Gurukulas were imparting in education even up to 200 years ago. We know that we had such beautiful Gurukulas and all kinds of subjects were being taught, whether it was astronomy, whether it was metallurgy, whether it was engineering, whether it was whatever that Western world calls it today. But it was being done in a way that was empowering a young adult to go out into the world at that age and be able to give employment to others instead of seeking employment. So it's not a slavery mindset that we want them to be in. We want them to be in a leadership mindset. And that pride can come when they know their history, when they're connected to their ancestors. They need to know the sacrifices made by our ancestors. We need to know the genocide that our country has gone through for 2000 years. We're not talking about last 20 years or last 200 years. We're talking about a 2000-year history. So that's where I started sharing with you that the trauma that our ancestors have gone through is living in our DNA. Till we don't recognize it, we are all going to have to go through a very hard time to reconnect back with the wisdom of our ancestors. Because in the DNA, along with the trauma comes the wisdom at the same time. But for me to unlock that wisdom and open it with the password, the key lies for me to heal the trauma. And the trauma cannot be healed singularly. The trauma needs to be healed collectively. It always has to be in a sangam, because a sangam provides you that safe space, that container. Everybody feels supported. Truth is spoken. Mantras are chanted. Satsang is had. So that's in that collective field we will come together. So parents have to come together in a cohesiveness for their children. We want to raise warriors for tomorrow who will lead this world, who will be able to think out of the box. We don't want programmed, conditioned, brainwashed young people who are thinking like those factory models, coming out of those institutions and then saying, now I'm looking for a job. I mean, we are wasting talent. We are wasting young generation, young blood we have in our country and globally as well, who has so much potential, and there's so much that can be done that we just, it's like we're sitting on a pile of gold and we're looking to the other side. Where is the gold? It's almost we have to say, I'm the gold, I'm shining with the gold, and I know how to go through fire and become more purified gold. So here I am really appealing, as I said earlier, to the intellect of parents and grandparents. Just let go of all these fears and all these inhibitions and belief systems which have been imposed upon us, and really just come back to honor our ancestors, our roots, our practices. All the wisdom is in that. Everything is lying there for us, just waiting to be rediscovered.
Excellent, Yukta.
Ravi, I guess it's your turn to ask now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll ask a question, probably slightly a deviation from what we are talking about, but within the subject. There is a interesting story in the Puranas that actually, the Narada tried to actually give the wisdom to different people of different ages. He tried with the adults, then didn't work properly. He came a little bit down to the teenagers, didn't work properly. He even came down to Dhruva, who was very young, didn't work. Yeah. Finally, he had the opportunity to tell it to the Kayadu, who was pregnant. You probably would know the story. Kayadu, who was pregnant, he was actually giving all the wisdom to the pregnant, the child that it was in her womb. And we have the epitome of bhakti, who is Prahlad. So it's actually in a way saying that the thing has to stop. The raising a good child starts from when the child is in the womb. So can you elaborate the importance of doing it and the right way of doing it?
Yes, beautiful question, Raviji. In fact, I would have happily come to it, but I'm glad you brought it up in this way. We also have the story of Abhimanyu, who was in mother's womb.
Ashtavakra also.
Right? So that for us, that's a classic story that he knew how to go into the Chakravyuha and mother fell asleep, and then now he didn't know how to come out of the Chakravyuha. Of course, that is also in a way to stay, for the Shastras to say, or the Rishis to teach us that what are those states we are going through. We are in the waking state, we're in the sleeping state, we're in the dream state. So how our consciousness is getting affected when the mother has gone to sleep, the child is also in that state where it can take in through the subconscious, understanding the father's voice is speaking. Raviji, what is very critically lacking, which as I was sharing earlier, Vidya Ma will confirm it as a mother to me. Whatever the mother is going through is directly impacting the child's genetics. Not just food and emotions. I'm saying even her thought patterns. What I am experiencing is something that my mother would have gone through when she was a fetus in my grandmother's womb as a baby. So it's intergenerationally connected. We can't just look at anything very isolated. So for understanding trauma or understanding how to heal it, how to connect back with our ancestors, and how do we look at this whole thing, the first umbrella that we need to look at, and that was the reason that even I when my whole journey went backwards. If this is what happens in childhood, then what happens in pregnancy, then what happens before pregnancy, and how does that whole thing fit together? And that fired up my curiosity, and I said, okay, we have the answer. Garbha Upanishad. It's in one line, everything. Rishi Pipalada has laid it out for us. It's a very sweet, small, but very potent Upanishad. It's a scripture of about 80, 90 odd verses. And I've had the good fortune of learning it from Meerama and Babaji Shiv Kumar, who imparted that, in their Guru Parampara to a lot of us. It's also understanding the sacred geometry that is at play here. So when we look at the Shri Chakra, you look at the Shri Yantra, that is, we say is that it's our blueprint, it's our template for the cosmos being created. And in that sense, what is the mother's blueprint and the father's blueprint is merging together. That is where we know how it's sort of not embodying, but how it's playing out in the child's own spiritual heart, as we call it. How is that blueprint affecting their karmic patterns playing out in their lifetime? And as you were also saying, Raviji, through the story of Bhakta Prahlada, is that what are those karmas and what are those punyas that I have collected in the previous lifetime, which will now match to this joined blueprint of my parents, and therefore I'm taking birth in this family. So many generations of grandfathers and grandmothers and people have to take birth, come into that place, and at that right time, and then in that moment, conception happens. So to answer your question, it's not just only about the womb or conception, it's even before conception. It's almost like we are preparing a spiritual womb for the baby to come in as parents, and becoming so conscious and aware of what is my sadhana, how much of purification have I done to my body and my senses, how much of tapasya have I done to purify my own intellect, of my own vasanas, of my own illusions, as we say it. How much have I come out of this, the Maya Nagari? And very critical for parents today to do that preparation before they decide that they are now ready to conceive. It should not be a random act of conjugal bliss that is giving rise to a baby. It must be very consciously and it's a very sacred union. It's all over in our temples. Ardhanarishwara. We are not hiding it. There is nothing to be ashamed of it. We are celebrating it. We're saying that a man and a woman come together with so much love and so much beauty and with so much welcoming for the soul that then you give Janma to a very great Atman. Then you are really becoming the container and the nest for that great soul to take its birth, because they're waiting. So many of them are waiting. And that's the other thing. A lot of our disconnect from our culture has led us not to understand the importance of these things. Today it's become very critical. A lot of people say we're facing these obstacles, this is not happening, everything is going, but this is not happening. And nobody is looking at Jyotisha, nobody is looking at Pitrudosh. We all have a Pitrudosh. We all have a Matru Rin, we have a Guru Rin, we have a Rishi Rin. We have to pay off all these debts. So without understanding the scriptures, without having seen how must it have played out between date of death to date of birth, for that we are looking at the Garur Puran. The Garur Puran will give us the answers of how it is for a soul journey after death. So we get a complete picture of life. It's a whole cycle. We are not just saying having taken birth, gotten pregnant, having baby, having given academic education. That's not the perspective to have in life. We really have to have a complete understanding of Garbha Upanishad, Garud Puran. What are the rishis saying? What are the scriptures saying? What is the path that is carved out for me? How do I live a dharmic life? What is my purpose of taking birth? What is my intent for serving my motherland? So all these questions can only arise when that culture is there in that family, when those conversations are being had, when the parents themselves are aware. So today we can't complain we don't have time to go to a Gurukula and spend time studying with somebody, because everything is available on the internet. So that's where the modern technology can come as our tool. Instead of it becoming our master, we become masters of this technology and say, okay, I'm commanding this to do. Now, of course, with AI, it's going to another level altogether. But just coming to consolidate and crystallize to your answer is, I'd highly encourage parents to educate themselves, to be on the spiritual path, to really understand how it is that you want to conceive a child. Are you physically prepared? Are you mentally prepared? Are you emotionally prepared? Are you both in that spiritual union with each other? Both have to be so devoted to their sadhana. And both have to be both mother and father and even grandparents. Why not? We are saying we want to live in a community structure. We are not saying we want parents to be bringing up children in a nuclear, family unit. We want everybody to come together and contribute. But again, the question is arising that who are the influences around you? We cannot just have all relatives spilling out everything without knowing what is the truth of it as laid out in the scriptures. So we need those wise people around us. We have Shankaracharyas. We have people available to us through YouTube channels. They're giving out all the Vidya. We just have to learn to tune in. Our antenna is not tuned in the right direction. So a lot of parents, I feel, are being misled because they're leaning more towards, somehow there is this obsession of leaning towards the West, who has not only stolen everything from the Vedas, but distorted it, misconstrued it, misrepresented it, and reduced it down to everything broken into small modules and pieces which are being sold for commercial value. So that bhav of bhakti and that bhav of serving people and that bhav of enlightening other minds is missing and sorely lacking. Which is why I keep saying all we have to do is come back to our roots, and we just have to invoke grace, and we just have to set the intention. This is my dharma. This is how I wish to lead my life. Everybody else can keep making noise around me. It should not affect my state of mind. So taking a lot of time to sit with yourself in silence, and making sure that you've established your practices of meditation and japa and sadhana is so crucial today to our mental well-being. is so critical, how we are able to then discriminate the outside noise. And then when we are able to do that as parents, not only just before we conceive, when we've conceived the baby in the womb, after we've delivered the baby, as we continue to nurture that young soul or old soul, whoever it may be, into their adulthood, then we are bringing together community. Then we're able to give that to them on a very subconscious level. Everything doesn't have to be said to the child. They're automatically picking it up. They're automatically doing those things. It's coming naturally to them because it's a part of the culture. That way, I find that, at least in the south of India, certain more traditional things are followed much better. In bigger cities, metro cities like Mumbai and Delhi, it's become like a crazy jungle. It's hard to expect that somebody will be able to have that lifestyle. But yeah, I think core key elements over here is returning back to nature. Parents need to cut out all forms of unnecessary consumerism, whether it's products, whether it's gadgets, whether it's food, whether it's chemicals. Just make your life as simple as you can. Your health will be better, your mind will be better. And of course, your child's life will be a more enriched. There's no doubt about it. So thank you for asking that question, Raviji.
My pleasure. Vidya ji.
Yes.
So thank you for explaining so beautifully.
Yes. Yeah. Flowing, it's flowing. So we don't want to interrupt you. Anyway, Yukta ji, how can we combat deracination?
Vidya ma, as I was saying earlier, for us, it's been, for me and my son, I can say what we've done, and is that, we've stood very strongly and said that till I don't find the right acharya for me, till I don't find the right educational resources, I'd rather just keep my life as empty and stay with that feeling of nothingness for a while, because then I'm the container. I'm having the ability to then grasp and absorb that wisdom when it comes at the right time. But in that rush to go and get yourself more information is where we are staying in that state of cognitive dissonance. Deracination is a result of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance, or rather, cognitive dissonance is the result of deracination, one of the two. We are looking at a state of mind where, because of this being told by the colonizers, by this whole Western methods of education, somewhere in our mental and neurological pathways, we don't know what to believe. It's almost like I'm disconnected with my own intuition and with my instinct. I know it's somewhere deep within me. That voice of truth is fighting to come out. But because of all the social conditioning and the external programming, somewhere there is that feeling of disconnect and dislodging in my own mind. So that's where that's where I felt, for me as well, in my own personal journey, the biggest jump and the biggest leap that I made was by sticking to my daily practices. Whether it's chanting, whether it's sitting in silence, whether it's meditating, whether it's contemplating, reading the teachings, that is the only bridge that is going to cross us through this ocean of samsara. As we say, the Guru is rowing you in the boat and taking you with them. Grace is carrying you. And we are so fortunate to have it naturally handed down to us. We are so blessed to even understand it. That itself is a matter of grace, to even recognize it and to apply it. So I feel, in one line, if I had to answer your question, Vidya ma, deracination can only be combated by completely overthrowing all systems of colonialization. Whether it's education, whether it's business, whether it's running systems, political systems, we are talking about how we are running, management is happening of the country, whether how we're looking at development, whether how we're looking at integrating with the tribals who have a lot of the wisdom, the farmers, the farming community, with agriculture. India has always been known, and we've always been an agricultural country. So our battle today is saying, I don't want to hear or speak any other language that was not done by my ancestors. For me, that's the first question I ask. If I'm confused about something, should I choose this or that? And say, how would my ancestors have done it? If they had these two choices, okay, they didn't have these two choices. They had some different battles to fight. They had constant impeding invaders and war and genocide, the fear of genocide happening at any given moment. But the choices that they made were always rooted in with nature. They always respected and valued things of nature, cycles of nature, rhythms of nature, mother nature, earth. They never did things to hurt other living beings. It was never done with carelessness. There was always a lot of thoughtfulness and a lot of depth behind everything. There was a lot of recycling of something. We've gotten into the culture where we take something and we just want to discard it. This thing is not working, buy a new gadget. This is not happening, get a new person. This friendship is not working, judge this person. So the whole culture has gone through not just, I would not say it's just a shock or a trauma. I'm saying the culture has gone through a complete dissection in that way. We have to really put things together. And as I keep saying, fortunately for us, it's all laid out. But the feeling has to come from within. That awakening has to come from within us. And a huge part of that is the education system and the health systems have to be put in place. How we eat, what we eat, when we eat, what we don't eat is all going to inform my mind. In our scriptures, we've said what you eat is how you think. Straight from Pranamaya Kosha to Manomaya Kosha, we are going. Direct link. Now, today science is saying there is a gut-brain axis, and what is happening in your gut is informing your brain, and therefore children are having learning difficulties. They're having ADHD, they're having this allergy, they're having that problem, they can't focus, they can't understand this, and all the long list of problems they'll give it to us. But for us, we just have to look to Ayurveda. We just simply have to go back to our basics and keep it, as foundational as we can. I feel the more and more we can quit our need for materialism, which is only self-centered, and we can move more towards artha, where it is going to be, impacting our dharma, where artha is used, or rather resources will be used for the purposes of dharma. And the more and more we can come back to agriculture, the more we can come back to being connected with the farmers, the more that we ourselves will become living on land, not in sky-rise buildings and moving in cars. The more we can walk barefoot on ground, the more we can listen to Mother Nature, we'll be a much happier lot. Apart from that, I think we'll have a few things to teach to the West, which they may have lost out and missed out on while they were busy stealing our Vidyas. But also one more point that I want to add is, in terms of reprogramming our neurological pathways, Vidyama, again, coming back from the teacher training and the pedagogy and the, brain science, whatever physical actions we do, it helps to program the pathways of the brain. We know that child needs to crawl, then only the child will sit up. Baby will then stand, then baby will walk. So there's a progression. It's a staged, sequential progression. Similarly, as adults, we have forgotten that we are not doing those physical activities which will help integrate our neural pathways. And primary need of the hour for not only combating deracination, coming out of this whole fear psychosis where, as I said, there's this cognitive dissonance. We don't know what to believe. The one short answer, other than, as I said, Ayurveda and agriculture, going back into our roots, would be to set up a lot of martial arts schools everywhere. When we go back to our physical ability to not only just defend ourselves, to protect our communities, women, children, but we're also embodying that fearlessness. It's not simply that we worship Lord Parshuram as an avatar of Vishnu. All our gods and all our devtas and devis have full weapons in their hands. Nobody's just sitting and meditating. But Lord Parshuram, because he is the one who is, he's given us the gift of Kalari Payat, And from Kalaripayat, we have other martial art forms in the world, which are today known as Tai Chi and Kung Fu and whatnot and whatnot. And me, especially having been born here in the land of Maharashtra, I feel my heart and my whole being, it swells up with pride that women were also taught this especially in Maharashtra, and it is known as Mardani Khel. So Shivaji Maharaj, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj really worked very hard to make sure that women, and he was very highly encouraging that, because of course Jija Mata herself, his mother herself, was a skilled, military sort of martial arts expert from a very young age. So when we do that, we are not only looking at the spiritual benefit of being fearless and being bold and being very proud when we are walking in our body. We are feeling so embodied with our, with the courage and grace that we have. But we're also looking at countering the mental neurological discoordination that we feel, or the disconnection that we feel, because it's moving us into that way of thinking where we're able to integrate the Vidya and we're able to then apply it. So that is how I feel that community will come together in a state of feeling united. That's where we feel today as Hindu Samaj, that we are not coming as united. So we have to unite in our bhav. It's in the heart that we unite, whether it's the heart of bhakti, whether it's the heart of bhai. One of the two will unite. With fear, we'll come into our courage. It'll push us into the other tangent. It'll immediately propel us like a swing, like a pendulum. When we're all, it's like, even in the human body, they say, when it's one single cell, it dies. When there are so many cells together, they form an organ. Same thing they say for babies. You leave a baby in isolation, it will not survive. Plants in isolation will not survive. So we have all to come together. And my next appeal would be to the global Hindu community to start investing in those things which are for the long term, from just looking at putting in all the wealth into funding Western institutions which are run by the deep state and which are looking at anti-Bharat. It's better that we take our funds and move into a parallel economy and do what is good only for our Samaj. Have our own apps, have our own banks, have our own akhadas, do everything for our own selves, so that we stop depending on an outside system and we say we are no longer deracinated, we are completely empowered. So yeah, that would be my prayer for the younger generation as well, to pick up Astra and pick up the Shastra, both.
Perfectly explained, Yukta ji.
Thank you.
Beautifully explained. Ravi, go ahead.
Yeah, we will open up for questions. I think, as the people are coming in, we'll go with the next question. We were mentioning about, the media, how they manipulate things and all that, especially with the kids. There is a lot of narratives, and the Hindu narratives are there, or even the history-wise, the fake history, the non-existent history is there, and even more dangerous, the wokeism, which is being seen these days. Even more dangerous, I would say. I mean, some of the things that I have heard from people is like, I don't know what to answer. What could I answer for those things? So, how do you think we can mitigate such
But so, Raviji, because you're living in another country, I'd really like to know. I've never been to Australia, in fact, but I'd love to know, what are those things that you're hearing which today you feel are, the voices of wokeism, as you said. So just give me one example, Raviji.
It's a herd knowledge. It's not something they have experienced. It's actually coming from somewhere else. But if let's say, the other day, I shared something like there was a few brands of oil which is being used in temples and everything. Somebody has put a post saying that these are the owners of this oil, which is from a particular community, and they have been known to have adulterated. So it's like an awareness that you you shouldn't buy something from such sources. You should prefer the correct brand. Got it. I shared it in some of the Hindu groups and all. Some of the people came and said, why you are spreading hatred? Why you are actually, the people like this, who are spreading this news are not Hindus, and they're giving away certificates left and right. So, and surprisingly, some of the Hindus are the ones who came and said, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't do like this. They are all brothers and sisters and all those things, letting ourselves to be exploited. to give you an example, somebody which actually amazed me, that I was talking to someone about the Ram temple, which is newly built Ram temple in Ayodhya. Somebody asked me, what is the point of having a temple over there? Is there you are giving more opportunities for the beggars to come in? How would I answer such such things? Have a completely lack of knowledge of our history or the importance of Ayodhya and everything. It doesn't even actually give me an opportunity to explain it to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where do I start? So I have heard such instances, and there are. I am happy to see that every day there are 150,000 people going over there. I'm very happy that even a lot of people from Kerala are also going, who I didn't think were so inclined. I'm happy about that. See, Australia, for example, to give an instance, people may think that when they hear about India, it's all about caste, and it has a lot of things like they can't have cow meat, and those are the kind of things which has been propagated long ago, and it's still surviving.
Yeah.
So you get the idea. Yeah.
A lot of misinformation has been spread, as we already know, Raviji. I mean, you're also in the media, and I've been part of the media previously. It is it's a targeted agenda of the people who are so-called big media heads, and they think themselves to be some lord and masters of the world. And so far, they thought that they were able to control the narrative. So far, they thought that they were able to dictate how people think and look at things, whatever it may be. And they have come from, their whole foundation is based on anti-Hindu and anti-Bharata. That's their only propaganda, is that. Now, the ones who have been listening to it for over the last so many decades, we can say, where it has been much more forced down your throat, so to speak, because of social media and internet being in our hands and faces, and it's really out there. So two aspects. One is, we have to know that it's coming from with the agenda of misleading and misinforming other people about how India is. Secondly, we ourselves somewhere have I can't say let go, but yeah, we've not allowed ourselves to be empowered with the right information and the right knowledge. And somehow that psychological subversion has come, where we have been made to feel guilty. It's unfounded guilt. We are made to feel guilty if we speak up for ourselves. Somehow this Hindu idea is all about just sitting and meditating and being one peaceful monk in the Himalayas, and that is not true. As I was saying, our Devi and Devtas and our great rishis have been, Ram Bhagwan Swayam, he had to pick up the bow and arrow. He's not left Ayodhya as the kingdom with just one meditation mat and asana. So so that's why I was saying the first level of our coming back to this whole cultural attack on us, which has been going on for centuries, 2000 years, more than that, is to come back to empowering ourselves physically. We are warriors. Our ancestors have fought back. We have given resistance. We are the only cultural civilization that has survived all these onslaughts. So the question of a Hindu being peaceful means they know how to protect themselves. And that means in today's day and age, we have to move from getting defensive into becoming offensive. So when I need to become offensive, I need to first have my gyan of my shastras with me. Then I can throw the arrows of proper knowledge, and those thoughts and words have to sting sharp where it really hurts to the other person who's choosing to insult my faith and to denigrate me in that manner, whether it's publicly on social or it's in an interpersonal interaction. So we ourselves have to feel very strong and proud about it. It can come, as we were saying, with physical empowerment through Kalari Payat and with martial arts and Mardani Khel and all of those things. It will also come through our connection with our Devi Devtas, through sadhana, through japa. It will also come through when we know that these are the asuras we have to fight. Even if that asura is coming in the body or on the clothing of a Hindu, so-called Hindu, but they themselves are unfortunate because they've lost out on this lifetime of empowering themselves with Vidya. So now it's my task to put them in place. So we have to get a little stronger in that, on that front. And this whole, this whole idea of so many things, like even veganism, don't have cow's milk and don't do this, and it's, you're taking away from the baby's milk, and you please don't teach us about those things. We have worshipped Gau Mata. The day that y'all quit meat and the day that y'all stop misusing Mother Earth to the extent that you have created so much pollution with industrialization in the name of development, then you will be in a position where we will even consider educating you. Right now, we don't waste our time on educating fools. Number one, if somebody comes to me in a respectful manner and is willing to listen with an open mind, I'm willing to share with them that there is nothing called caste. It's a word that has been brought to us by the Spanish. It doesn't exist in our dictionary. Jati and Varna are completely on a different tangent, for which you have to be born as a Sanatani to understand it. I can't explain it to you in English language. So first you start learning Sanskrit, then we'll talk. Sometimes I joke with my son also. I said, we should get all of them to shave their heads, wear a veshti and put some basma. Then you come to my Gurukulam and I'll talk to you. Otherwise, I'm not willing to deal with you. But jokes apart, Raviji, when people choose to denigrate, we have to energetically create a boundary in your aura field, because they are looking to attack us in a very demeaning manner. So secondly, these people are not the kind of, or the variety who will get convinced with logic. Some people have to go through a hard time and they have to get a whip and a crack on their head. Then they learn in the hard way through their own experiences of pain. They have to go through that suffering. For those who are willing to learn, who are open-minded and who are willing to see reason, there is enough resources out there. There is so many wonderful books written. There are so many good people speaking on the internet, on YouTube or wherever it is, where they have kindly explained what is the scientific understanding of Jati, Varna, whatever it may be, with regards to, our spirituality. Our core is our spirituality. Why is there it's a social order. That is the reason the West is trying to teach us how do you feel motivated, and we will teach you in life coaching and all those things. We don't need all this gyan from them. We are very content with our acharyas, with our Shankaracharyas, with our Pithadipatis, and with our Shastras. And the last person we need to learn anything about life coaching and mind management is from you guys. So let's leave that aside. We'll show to you how it's done, because we are the masters of it. Coming back to, with regards to hatred, anybody who's using the term Hindu is spreading hatred is themselves full of hate, because they themselves don't understand how loving we have been. They don't have the filter, they don't have the perception to see how loving and embracing Hindu culture has been. Sanatanis have been for centuries. We have, welcomed and taken into the fold of our land and our homes also. It's like we wear our hearts on our sleeves. But that has been taken undue advantage of. That has been taken as our vulnerability or thought of as our weakness. On the contrary, a warrior is a person who has so much love in their heart that they can fiercely fight to protect that love. And that is why we feel that we can bleed for our Bharat Mata. Those are the feelings that we have. That is an inherent gift to us from the ancestors. We don't fear for life. We don't fear if a bacteria or a virus is going to come and I need to wear a mask. We put our hands in the mud and we take care of our Gau Mata, and we bring medicinal value out of the cow dung and the cow urine also. Today, cancer therapy is also being done from Panchagavya. So they really all need to take a back seat. They need to roll back their tongues and go into Maunam, because that's the only way that they will be able to understand the beauty of what Sanatan has brought to the world. The whole world is literally the whole world is hanging in balance because of the tapasya and the work that is done by our rishis until today, the yogis and the great saints who are walking on this sacred bhumi. It is not without their tapasya that we are even sitting and breathing. A leaf is not moving on this planet without the blessings of our great, great beings. So I say it fiercely, but at the same time, I say it with a lot of humility, that we are here to serve. Our leadership is not one of commanding people. Our leadership is one of serving people. That is what we are. But when you try and walk all over us, and you think that you are going to smash our hearts into pieces, then please be well informed that Hindus, when we wake up, and it'll just be one night required, and the whole Hindu Samaj globally can wake up. It'll not take more than one night. And everybody will be put into their places, including governments who are trying to fail us, politicians who are trying to take advantage of votes. Anybody who thinks that the Hindu Samaj is a meek, cow herding community should know that we know how to whip our weapons and, slash down throats when it comes down to it. And for that, we don't need bloodshed. We can just do it verbally, or we can do it with thought alone. Thought alone is enough for a yogi, or for a mind who has done, for a mind who is in self mastery and self control. So for people who think that we are trying to create division, no, the division is created by the asuras. We are here to protect our children, our bhumi, our nature, and this is our dharma. So there is no question of anybody saying don't buy from here. No, we are not going to buy and feed into halal economy. We are going to stand up against those evils in society. We are going to call out all those things, whether it's issues of media mafia, whether it is the pharma companies trying to overrule us and trying to show us how to do medicine. Ayurveda is something that is not just born to us. Even surgery is something that is born to us. Till today, the surgical instruments also that are used in modern medicine, so to speak, are what Sushruta had devised so many hundreds and thousands of years ago. So we really just, in short, Raviji, we only just have to speak much more assertively, and that's where the game will change. We have to first believe that we are stronger, we are empowered. Just because we're sitting quietly does not mean that we are weak. We're sitting quietly because we're choosing not to have bloodshed. So the fact that somebody says you're this country and that country, it's their misfortune. They were not even born in this country to know what are the great grand gifts of the legacy that we carry. Our shoulders have carried the weight of centuries of tapasya and sacrifice. They are not capable of doing that. They don't know what is sacrifice. Our kings and our rajas and maharajas have built empires on the virtue of sacrifice. It has never been for their own selfish gain. So we are not a mindset, or we are not a cultural civilization that looks at looting, raping, reducing Mother Nature, and disrespecting another human being. We are a cultural civilization that looks to empower and not only enlighten, but also evolve everybody together. We take everybody together with us. That's where our strength lies. And for those people, I want to add in this, for those people who say that there is a whole demographics that is bringing our numbers down, we just have to remind ourselves that even though Pandavas were only 5 and Kauravas were 100, they even had Bhagwan Shri Krishna's army with them, but Bhagwan Swayam was with us, the Pandavas, which means Bhagwan Shri Krishna is on the side of Dharma, and Dharma is always victorious. You can't eclipse the sun. You can't eclipse the sun. The sun is shining bright. This whole universe is lit up because of the sun. So we give arghya to the Surya because we have that ability to hold the tejas of the sun. And we are not scared of burning in that fire, because we'll come out on the other side much more purified. Like gold, it comes out more purified when it goes through fire. So nothing to be feared. And, again, I would really request parents to have that connect with Bharat Mata. Read up on your own Puranas, read up on your own Itihasa, understand who you are. Give that to your children. Even Jija Mata gave the stories of Ramayana and Mahabharata, and, she was able to bring Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj to us, who was the only one who established a Hindu empire all over India, Bharata in the 16th century, 17th century. So we are talking about somebody whose life was dedicated to protecting dharma and women and children. but not at the cost of denigrating the other community. It's always at the cost of saying, this is who we are. It's almost like a small line is drawn, but I'm not going to sit and erase that small line. I'll draw a bigger line in front of that and just show who's the boss.
Absolutely. Now we will go with the audience question. The first one is Ram.
Please.
Ram,
Please
go ahead.
Namaste Yukta ji, and Namaste Ravishankar ji, Satyameva Jayate. I'm starting with one particular point you have raised, just like made your kids being empty, so that when an acharya coming to you and ready to fill that emptiness with the right knowledge, till then you're advising to wait. For a and recent political or whatever the scenarios, making many of Hindus thinking in the way that, okay, this is not the right way we are going through, and we need a change, but we are empty with what to do. So even how to make ourselves empty also is a big challenge in present world, because especially kids, they are so much into the social medias and as a summary, internet influence. So do you think including whatever the YouTube or any other social media places where our small kids and till younger generation are do you think there should be more right contents which will not distort them from the actual facts, and they will get at least some right idea, where later on when they are applying their intellect, they will not get conflicted?
Correct. Very beautifully, sir. Actually, your answer is within your own question, and I did touch upon it briefly. When we have developed the ability to discriminate between avidya and vidya, then I know what is truth and what is false and illusion. So if the West or social media or any college or any teacher or any person is trying to feed my child or me the wrong information, I also need to have the ability to discriminate. Now, okay, we may say we want to go in silence. We may say I want to be in a state of nothingness and emptiness for a while till I find that correct source of wisdom or knowledge or teacher coming towards me. And then I can know what is the truth as stated in the scriptures or taught by the gurus and the rishis of our sacred land. But how do I make this mind, as you're saying, when we are already so constantly, children are so used to being on their gadgets, and how will this faculty be developed? The answer lies in the ability to sit with yourself in silence. When we sit with ourselves in silence, we are able to listen to the voice of our intuition better. We can trust that wisdom is coming from my Guru's grace, is coming from the Rishi Parampara, which is coming to me, from the universe. The cosmic truth cannot be challenged. There are certain universal laws which are in place. If some new latest research on the internet is now claiming something, doesn't mean I have to believe it. How do I actually then not only filter out, but just step back a little bit and have a correct perspective or a view? How can I have a different lens towards something? Is knowing. There is a knowing. There is a voice within each one of us that tells me this is the truth. You can know it when somebody is telling the truth, and we know it when somebody is speaking lies, or if something is not convincing you. So the truth doesn't need convincing. That is where in my journey, I've realized it, that if it's true, it's so true. It's like, like we say, the sun rises in the sky and there's colors which are filled up, which you can't mistake it. You can't say it's nighttime because it's daytime. That is the beauty of Vidya. That is the power of Sanatana. That the truth doesn't need to be convincing you. You yourself will resonate on your heart, in your mind, in your entire being, in your consciousness. You will be convinced that there is nothing beyond us. It settles your mind. Your mind comes to rest in that universal heart, as we may call it. Your mind comes to know a feeling of peace descends on you. That's what we experience when we go to satsang. When we have satsang with ourselves, with people who have good thoughts and good things to say, or we are listening to a pravachan from a saint or from a master or from somebody, we know it when they're speaking the truth. It gives you that feeling of divinity within your own self. And that is the key that we need children to be able to have. For them to be, when they're with nature, they listen to the sounds of birds. They observe how creatures in nature are moving in complete harmony. There is biodiversity, but they're also having a certain coherence amongst themselves. And they observe all these things. Children understand it much more better through the power of observation than we can teach them through instruction or through, information technology. But also what I wanted to add to, to the brother who just asked this question is, I personally do not believe, and nothing in the world can convince me, that we can learn through a program on the internet. Because the art of imparting knowledge, it's an unbroken chain. In India, we say that when we say the Guru Shishya Parampara, it's an unbroken chain of oral tradition. So everything that has to be given must be given. So even if we're sitting on the internet today, we're able to see each other. I may have an acharya sitting in front of me and, listen to the acharya or to a guru speak to me directly. But I have to be connected to them in my heart level. So that is a very karmic bond, or that is a very spiritual gift, so to speak. But I don't believe that technology can teach our children. Firstly, that is not how that unbroken tradition and lineage, or that frequency, or that vibration that is coming through the ages, through the centuries, will carry through this digital media as regards to academic education or with regards to the imparting of Vidya. That does not mean to say that today, as we are saying, there are Shankaracharyas and there are Pithadipatis, or there are a lot of gurus who are, a lot of institutions having good programs that are being imparted. But that connection with the guru of the Guru Shishya Parampara, or of the student and the teacher, has to happen. So for that, understanding that the person who's teaching me has embodied that knowledge, is walking that same path of the wisdom, is equally important. And ideal setting would still be where everybody is sitting together in a collective field of consciousness, where we are directly in the presence of the Guru, because that physical, how do we say this, physical spandan of being in their energy field, they have done so much tapasya and they have done so much sadhana that in their aura, we get elevated. So whatever information or whatever knowledge transfer has to happens on another subconscious level. It can't happen on this level of the just the waking intellect. So this is my personal conviction and belief. Having said that, I also feel very strongly about a lot of gurukuls today in India which are not following the proper parampara, that have become completely commercialized, or are subscribing to some curriculum and some Western education, parameters, that the child needs to give some 10th board and 12th board, and some systems are in place. And when I have asked as a parent, why are you doing this? Because you're a gurukul, we should just stick to our parampara. And I'm told, parents put pressure and child will not get a job. And again, all those insecurities I hear about. As I was saying, that fear factor is what has gripped our parents, whereas actually we should be the ones feeling so strong and empowered. So yeah, time to change a lot of things around us, and time for us to not wait for somebody else to hand it down in terms of setting up those institutions, in terms of setting up those systems. where more children can come and gain that knowledge and get empowered fully.
I hope, Ram, your question has been answered properly.
Exactly. Yes. Namaste.
Namaste. And it's been a long time since I heard from you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. It was a while I was not in Clubhouse, and
I know, I
recently,
understand.
nice, knowledge sharing is happening. So I'm back.
All right. Thank you, Ram. Take care. And Rahul, you can ask your question.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Namaste, Yukta ji. I mean, nice
Namaste
to hear about Dharma from a person with your background. Typically, I would assume, I mean, almost always, it's woke people who are from your background, right? I don't know how you are able to survive.
Typically, yes, I've also met too many of them. That's why I dissociated from all of that. Yes, true.
Yeah, so my thing is like, are you planning to open some kind of podcast or something? Because I genuinely feel it is important, because typically when somebody is talking about Dharma, we would not associate somebody like you, and that might motivate many youngsters, like both men and women, right? To know that it's cool. I mean, it's not for boring people. Are you planning to open some kind of podcast for Dharma or something like that?
I'm very honored that you've brought this question, and I feel that every word that I've spoken today is purely out of my Guru's teachings and grace of the Rishis and this of Bharatiya Parampara. And I've totally come to believe that I'm here to serve people and society and complete my life purpose as in whatever calls me. So definitely, if there are people and if there is the Samaj will ask, or there'll be enough parents or communities who would love to gather and have that satsang, it will be my humble honor and pleasure to be able to give that seva and be there, be the voice of Sanatana as a daughter of Bharat Mata. As and when those times things evolve, as we say, it's all part of the cosmic divine timing. And hopefully, surely, I also have duties to my son. And sometimes I feel if I give him all of those things, then he'll take it forward. Yeah. Let's see. Whenever and however that unfolds and takes shape, whenever.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Yukta ji. So, yeah, I'll go back to the audience. Thanks, Ravi.
Thank you, Rahul. I was asking Vidya ji, if you have any last questions, probably we should wind it up. It's coming close to 120 minutes. So
really, oh,
Yeah,
I know.
Time's just been flying, not even flowing, flying. Actually, Yukta ji, just as a continuation of what Rahul ji had mentioned about podcast, you always have Satyamev Jayate to come and we can have a series of your talks. It's going to be absolutely brilliant, and you're an absolute crowd puller. So there will be so many people signing up to come and listen to you. There are no two ways about that. That I can guarantee.
Very sweet. Very sweet of you. Vidya, what is close to my heart, I definitely want to bring it to people. And maybe before we close, I can just touch upon that one subject which I have not mentioned through the last almost 120 minutes, is how women can really truly come back into their own feministic side. For lack of a better term, I'd like to use how our systems also need to change, whether it's the political governing systems, whether it's the education system, whether it's economic policy making, whether it's development, environment, anything and everything needs to have that nurturing and mothering touch much more integrated back into society. I feel that my whole journey of disassociating with a lot of things in society, or rather, abolishing it, boycotting it, rebelling against it, was purely based on the fact that it's too, I'm not using the word masculine, but it's just too commercialized. Everything has become about the self. Whereas I'm not saying it should not be about the self, but the self cannot exist without being for everybody else. It's like a tree, we were saying. A tree has so many branches that leaf or the branch cannot say the tree should exist only for me. Because if there's one side branch, that means the tree will go to one side and fall the balance. So it's coming into that harmony within ourselves as individuals also, where we bring a more feminine approach. And that can come when women also learn to accept and honor themselves truly as they are. So for me, it was as I was sharing with you all earlier, a lot of it was letting go of perceptions of people. There's the whole game of media and the whole game of being in a celebrity sort of tag is about you're fitting into a brand, and it's all about how people perceive you or how you're marketed. And it's not sustainable. That's not who you are. That's not the truth of any human being. They're putting up a front. It's a mask. You're wearing so many layers of masks behind all that makeup. So personally, for me, it doesn't resonate because I am who I am, and I talk freely, and I talk honestly, and I talk openly, and that's just the way it is. What I'm trying to come down to is that women, when we learn to rest within our own biological makeup, which means that when women learn to give themselves the much needed space when we go through our menstrual cycles, is what will eventually slow down a very fast-paced world, constantly stressed, constantly going into a mode of competing with the next person, trying to be in that one-upmanship. We're not able to think, we're not able to give, we're not able to be there for each other. And society can only heal when we are there for each other. When I know that I have somebody on a phone call, or I have the next person available to me if I'm going through a hard time. I'm not going to be judged or told what to do. I'm just going to be comforted, loved, and nurtured for that moment. And I think that is very, very badly needed. It's like it's like we're going out of oxygen. The world needs this prana shakti, this whole embodiment of the Devi as a mother, as a sister, as a nurturer has to come back. And women have to slow down in the corporate field to be able to bring that change and say, nature has ordained me to be resting for these 3 to 5 days. I mean, of course, we can go into the details of how Ayurveda asks for us to do it differently. But when women learn to bring themselves back into the cycle and rhythm of nature, then slowly things around us start healing on a level which, even with intellectual conversations, even with scientific proofs, even with the benefits of Ayurveda, even with focusing our attention on meditation and silence and whatever it may be, whether it's agriculture, ultimately it's women who are going to drive this change by just learning to slow down, just learning to be, and allowing things to unfold, and just accepting and embracing nature as it is intended to be. So I think that is where humans have to stop playing God and just let the divine take over. So I'd love to, we'll talk about the series, and surely we'll work it out where different subjects can be, we can go in depth into those categories, whether it's education, Ayurveda, women's health, children's empowerment through martial arts. And again, I'd like to close and thank both of you for giving me this blessed opportunity today to know both of you, to interact with both of you, and to be able to share my thoughts and my feelings and my experiences in my journey so far. And I pray that we can all come together in the womb of Mother Bharat Mata, Mother India, and really raise the Sanatan warriors that she's so desperately seeking to see, and she wants to see her children stand with pride, head raised tall, absolutely dignified, apologetic to nobody for practicing who we are, and what we are born to follow is our dharma and our purpose. So yeah, blessings and gratitude.
Absolutely our pleasure. And it's not always that I listen intently for the whole 2 hours. So it's been a pleasure, because my mind always goes to the clubhouse. I'll check other things and all that. But today, actually, I was listening intently almost all the way through. So it's been a pleasure. Vidya ji.
It's the blessings of the rishis, as I say. It's just Guru's grace. It's all Guru's grace.
It was a completely divine experience for me, Yukta. I can't tell you. In between, I was afraid I was going to get emotional also, especially in the beginning when we were talking about, how the how the mothers feel. That was
Yeah.
very, very, it was a beautiful experience, and we cannot wait to have more such sessions with you, because this is going to be a real eye opener for so many people, especially when it's coming from you. They will sit up
Thank
and take
you.
notice. There are no two ways about that. So thank you so much.
Thank you again. Thank you to both of you. Thank you.
Your son is
Thank you.
Stay
blessed to have
blessed,
you
and
as
we want more of your
yeah,
wisdom.
yeah.
Our wisdom is our Guru Parampara. That's what I say. I don't speak a word that has not already been said. Nothing is new. But just that we are sharing it together. Yeah.
Give of it so freely. I mean, not everyone does that, Yukta. So
No, we're
thank
grateful.
you.
And Vidya Ma, I want to thank you for the resilience that you have as a mother. I take inspiration in the patience that you have. And, when we meet, there's much more to share between us on that aspect as well of motherhood. But we'll see how it unfolds into a series. Yeah.
Definitely, that will definitely happen. Yukta.
Sure.
Can't wait
Sure.
for it.
And
Namaste.
Thank you so much.
धन्यवाद. धन्यवाद.